Welcome back. Today you're about to hear another testimony of a life forever changed by the love of Jesus. Today's guest is Zach Hollimon. Zach is a successful business owner and the leader of his own ministry, boldly walking in his calling. But his journey didn't start there. Zach's past was marked by darkness and danger. He was once deeply involved in gang life, specifically the notorious Gangster Disciples. His story includes a life of crime and addiction, a path that seemed hopeless. But God's mercy broke through. It was in that moment of grace that Zach surrendered his life to Christ and everything changed. Don't miss out on more life-changing testimonies. Subscribe to my channel for more powerful testimonies like this one. Now, let's get into it.
I think God shrugged me through everything that I did in the multiple suicide attempts, being stabbed, being shot at, everything that I've been through, multiple car wrecks. I shouldn't be here. Honestly, I think there was better folks died younger than me. I didn't. So, my testimony is that after all I've done and all I've been through, He saved me. And He saved me for a purpose. We all have a purpose. And it's crazy, if you ask God, what's my purpose? What's my direction? He will show you.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another testimony. Today, I got a new guest on today. Zach, I appreciate you taking out the time and coming on my show today to share your testimony. I'm excited to hear what God has done in your life, man.
I'm just truly blessed to have this opportunity. Honestly, I don't talk about my past much because, first of all, it sounds unbelievable. And most of the ones that were around for it are, dead, or, we just don't talk about it, That's just younger days and younger times, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, of course, when it comes to, sharing your testimony and stuff, there's certain things you can share that you're comfortable with. And of course, how God pulled you out of that and, rescued you out of that, pulled you out of your mess. And, that's always such a great experience, to share with other people and encourage others that are in that kind of life still, or, just really still struggling with that. So I'm really looking forward to hearing that. So, Zach, if you're ready, let's get into your testimony, man.
All right. I'll start from, I had good parents. I had a real good upbringing, hard working, blue collar mom and dad. Like, my mom was an artist, woodworker, painter, and all that stuff. She made my toys. When I was a kid, like carved them out of wood, and did all that stuff. My t-shirts, she would paint. I still have them today. Like, when I was 3 or 4 years old, like, painted giraffe or rhino or dinosaur, whatever I was into. And like, her art was just so good, it was amazing. Some of my kids and, got to wear some of that stuff when they were growing up. So they got to go through, two generations. Uh, you know, um, but I grew up in New Orleans, and you drink when you're happy, you drink when you're sad, and everybody drinks. It's if there's a hurricane coming that's going to wipe out the whole city, 70% of them are throwing a party. You know, uh, so I just kind of grew up, that lifestyle of drinking was okay and all that stuff. My dad, always never missed a day of work. Never, still to this day, 72 years old, and still goes to work every day. Works holidays, everything. But he would drink on the weekends. He would do his drinking on the weekends, and you know, uh, in my 13, 14s, and 15s, I started experimenting with you know, definitely alcohol and definitely marijuana. I had hippie parents. So did a few of my other friends. So it was like we were stealing, the roaches, and they were stealing little, bits of pot, and then, you know, you know, that was the teens. Well, as we got into the late 90s, uh, we started getting into the, cocaine. And at the time it was crank. And somehow or another we got tied in with the Mexican mafia and the Mexican mafia, Southern mafia, and some biker gangs and stuff. I was a gangster disciple. I was in the GDs. I was spoke and stuff, and you know we had a hustle going. You know, I can't say the name of the store, but there was a high end audio car audio shop that would but you come get a couple $1,000s worth of system and stuff done in your car. They would, that shop would give us your address. We'd go break into the cars, take, steal everything out of it. Shop would buy it back at price. Um, we had that scam going on for a while. You got to think I'm 16 years old this time. Um, and we were in the Marietta, Atlanta area doing all this. And one night, we did our thing, hit 16 cars, found a gun in one of the cars, and which was, nothing normal. A lot of folks, have their glove box and all that stuff. We found guns all the time. But after we hit the cars we had on our list, we had a list for two racing jet skis that were on a tandem trailer, and it was in a different county. And I'm in Georgia, so we were in Cobb County, and there's Paulding County. We lived in Bartow, so it's like cool. On the way through, we're gonna get them jet skis. We get to the neighborhood, and like we're in a super loud truck. It was a custom truck. We were into all that racing and all that stuff. We parked at the bottom of the cul-de-sac. Driveway was like a hill like this. I'm 16 years old. I'm like 110 pounds. The two of the guys with me, the other guy was same weight as me. And then, the other guy with us, he was, getting 240, 250, like this monster of a guy, you know what I mean? So we're like wheeling these jet skis down this hill, this driveway, and the strongest one loses grip, right? So the trailer goes rolling down the driveway, skidding, hits the green, transforming in the cul-de-sac. We run down there, we get up to the truck, we take off. We're like, got it, cool, we're gone. Keeping in mind we have a whole truck bed filled full of stuff that we had already been out, you know, getting that night, and we're a couple miles down the road, and a car starts coming up on us fast, flashing their lights at us, trying to swerve us off the road. And I was like, "Oh my god! Like, what's this guy doing?" Uh, so I took the pistol, that we had found, and I opened up the back window of the truck, and I shot off some, a couple rounds in the air, and come to find out he was an off-duty police officer. So, um, he was still trying to swerve us off the road. And if we had went left, like it was split the road, we'd have went left. We'd have made it to the Bartow County uh, line, and we'd have been out of that county by like a half a mile. But he made it to where we had to go right at the fork, which put us on the same road that the Paulding County Jail was on, and they hit us with a roadblock. And said they tried me as an adult. They helped me, tried me as an adult, and so I did 2 years on that. I did, 17th, 18th birthday prison. You know, went in 100 pounds, 110 pounds. Came out like 165, just ripped. I had to hold my own. I was in there with, I was in a camp where it was from 18 years old to 30 was the max out for it, because it was still a traditional prison boot camp. We wore army fatigues. We did PT every morning, like it was raining, like we were in the army, but like if we were in the brigs of the army, uh, so I had to grow up really fast and get tough really quick, which I thought I was tough until then. And I realized that, all the gang stuff that I was in on the streets didn't make nothing when you got to prison, because, you know, I'd end up rolling with black folks and stuff, on the streets. I get to prison, it's like, that doesn't matter. It's a white or black, you know what I'm saying, or Mexican or whatever, which I got along with the Vatos very well, but you know, you know, I got through all that, come out, pull up in the driveway after my parents picking me up, 3 or 4 hour car drive to 3 carloads of folks in my driveway waiting on me, all the homies and everybody, and they were like, get in the car, come on, come on, come on. I'm like, I got to report tomorrow. They're like, oh, you're gonna be good. You'll be good. Just ride with us. Come, let's go see some people. And a friend of mine stuck acid in my mouth, and first night out, I ended up dripping on acid. I would report it the next day. Obviously, I had none of my drugs, in my system. They let me do time served and revoke my probation, because I sat that time before I went to prison for this, and so that left me free running. Well, my best friend at the time, at this time now, he got hooked up with the Mexican mafia and the Southern mafia and stuff, and and uh, we still was messing with the Gangster Disciples, the Crips, and all that stuff. And we were moving weight of cocaine and all this stuff. This is before like meth. It's just like crank days, cocaine days, pre ecstasy, all this. I'll get to that. So we did that for it was 6 or 7 months after I got out of prison, and my best friend, he gets set up by uh, his sister-in-law, or his girlfriend's sister or whatever. She got busted and whatever, and set us up. And we roll up at a Shoney's, because we used to be smart about stuff. We were going to meet somebody for a large quantity or something. We go sit down and have dinner and act like we're family and friends. And that's how we would, well, it didn't happen like that, because they were already there waiting on us. And my best friend took the charges for what I had, because I just got out. Which to this day, he says, "Oh man, it's just a little bag of pot." You know, uh, Probably had a pound of weed. This is back in early 2000s. That was felonies back then, and he took the blame for everything. And so he went to prison. He went to prison, and I you know, kept running the roads. And I'm a smart guy and figured out things a little different than others. And I like to learn from other people's mistakes. Uh, Being flossy and bragging and all that stuff. Uh, that's how you get busted, um, and stuff. So I just, if I was going to sell dope in one county, I would live in another county. I'd move. So um, this is when I relocated to Atlanta, and I ended up going to a rave, and I got tied in with a chemist from Georgia Tech. He was a pre-chem, and he could get it as crazy. He could get his hands on anything and everything to make the best narcotics ever. Uh, like this, like I said, this was the start of the meth epidemic. Um, he was making Hitler's, yes, the Nazis, uh, German recipe for what they call shorts. Shorts is, to us is ice in meth. It had an amber color when it was first made, and a little bit of it, like a little bag, you know, that like this would keep 4 or 5 people up for a weekend, which we were doing the rave parties. Like, I still have boxes of flyers autographed by like the biggest DJs that ever spun records, So when I got hooked up with him, I got hooked up also with, uh, with a company called Atlanta Sound Division. And I would go and hook up all the equipment for these big shows, so I had access in and out all day long, and hooking up the mixers and bringing all the equipment in and testing and doing all that. Well, that's how I would bring in massive amounts of ecstasy and you know, um, meth and what mainly uh, meth X, ketamine, um, stuff like that, opium. And if opium came through, whatever. So, uh, as everybody's getting patted down coming into these shows, I'd already been in there and I already had runners and everything and doing all that. So, this was like 2001, 2002. Uh, so we were introducing, I was introducing like all these people to like the strongest meth ever made, period. Now, I don't know what they do these days, but it's nothing like it was uh, 25 years ago. It wasn't like it was crazy how strong it was back then. And then the ecstasy as well. Like, the chemists could make the MDMA, but I had to find the heroin and we would press the pills to make the pills, so MDMA and heroin makes the best ecstasy. And I was turning all these souls and all these people onto this. Um, I we had a tight knit group where I grew up in. Like there was about 30 of us. We called the Zoo Crew. There was about 30 plus of us, and like no matter what, we were ride or die. You know, we'd fight together, whatever together. Like, and a handful of us, was definitely hardcore into the scene and the hustle. And so I lived in Atlanta. I had an apartment in Atlanta. Had multiple apartments in Atlanta. So if I would come to Cartersville, that's where my mom and dad live, and where all my friends would be, I would wait until the like the weekend, and I would call my mom and dad, be like, "Hey, look, I'm coming through. Let's do a big cookout. I'll have all the homies come over. Maybe like 50, 60 people there. My parents got a big property, a giant deck off the back of their house. They had a bar and pool room that was separate, from the house where my shop was, where I used to work on my hot rods and stuff. So, the bar and pool room was big enough where it had 2 pool tables, 2 huge bars, like And I would make, whoever was meeting me, I would make them stay for 2 hours. They'd have to eat. They would have to socialize and hang out in some form of way. And then I'd give them what they come to pick up, and I did that. And that's how I did that. And I would transport everything inside of guitars because everybody knew I played music. So I would pack the guitars or you string it up, tune it, whatever. In the same way, that's how I transported the guns because I got big into the Mexican mafia wanted any guns we could get. Like it didn't matter. They would pay top dollar for whatever, and so I would trade, constantly. And after a couple of years, of doing that, and it's when I started seeing everybody just running, like nobody was the same. Nobody was a happy, brave kid, which I was always like a pretty gangster kid. Even in the rave scene, it was always about the hustle, always about the money. And I lost a few friends, suicide, murder, and a few other things. I'm not going to get into the high end facilities that I'll just say it's a strip club. We robbed in the Southern Mafia, and we got them for over six figures, and we had some hits on us, but things like that. And after my best friend Matt got killed, uh, we buried him. A couple of days after that, so I had some friends flying in from California that moved to California before all this whole craziness happened. But I've always stayed in touch with them. They were, this before Facebook. This was flip phone, Nokia phone days. And so we always stayed in touch. And when they came for Matt's funeral, they seen me and they were like, you need to fly back with us. You got to get out of here. You really got to get out of here. And, I already knew I was under serious investigation, for mainly the gun trafficking. They could care less about the drugs at the time. But just to give you an example of, how under investigation I was at, uh, 3 o'clock in the morning, we're drag racing on Highway 20. And, you know, every one of us, it was three cars, and every one of us was in cars built ready to run. And, they hit us with the blue lights, everybody split. Well, I pulled into a Walmart and I came in sideways, like just almost hitting stuff. By the time I stopped, I'm facing the doors to go into Walmart. I'm sideways in the main, front area. And then they come to me guns drawn. They came to me, asked for my ID. And, of course I had a gun with me, and, I probably had a bunch of dope, which, I was in the custom car world. So we made stash spots, and I also made, uh, where I could lift up where my shifter was, the cover, and I could pull a slot and I could drop dope out of my car and it hit the ground, from underneath my car, where your shifter is, shift linkages. And, but, running 120 miles an hour, putting folks' lives in danger and coming to Walmart sideways, they came up to me and says, "Sir, we're going to give you a warning. You need to slow down and not be racing." That's when I really, really knew that how under investigation I was. Like, that, you know, if they had every right to arrest me and charge me like huge, but it would have stopped. It would have threw a monkey wrench in uh, a bigger investigation, a bigger thing. So, after Matt died, like I said, I had some friends flying from California, and they came and they stayed at my house while we were the funeral and everything, and they looked at me and they were like, "Zach, fly back with us, fly back with us, get a ticket and fly back with us." And so I did. Uh, you know, I sold a motorcycle. I sold a bunch of dope. A discount sale of everything I was sitting on, and I had stuff stashed everywhere. Like, I left with enough to survive in California, and I hopped a plane. My mom and dad, got online. Like, I didn't have a credit card. I was a ghost. Like, I was a ghost and stuff. My mom and dad, booked my ticket for the same time as my friends that were leaving, and so I flew to Cali, and I get a call a couple weeks later, and it's GBI, an ATF. They were like asking me, "So are you in California?" And I said, "Well, you just called the California number." I said, "This is my phone number." And they're like, "Okay." I said, "Are you on vacation, or are you gonna be a resident?" I said, "I ain't never coming back." I said, "Man, I'm trying to get my license right now." I said, "I already signed a lease on an apartment for a year." And I said, "Okay, we'll see," because there was a RICO case going on with a bunch of us. And I don't know, if you don't know what a RICO case is, look it up. Um, so I stayed out there for, a little bit. Uh, the drug addiction stopped, cold turkey, and then that turned into drinking. You know, I'm still going to, like, the bars any chance I got. Tijuana, Vegas, like, we were just hours away from all these spots and stuff, and so, like, I traded one thing for another. Set my hustle actually worked. I had a job by Laguna Seca, working in a car, working in a shop. Turning wrenches, because what I knew. That's what I knew. All I knew back then was turning wrenches, and so I got to work on some really cool cars, and I did all that, and you know, I, I went to Vegas for the first. It was my first time in Vegas, and I met a girl. I met a girl up there, and uh, she drove to Vegas every other week, to work. She worked at Caesar's Palace, and she was a go-go dancer. She danced in little cages in the club. Nothing. You know, there was, you know, a go-go dancer. It wasn't like a strip club or anything. Yeah, we're not ever going to get into those stories of, you know, all the strip clubs and everything. That's this a different story, different time. Maybe we'll never talk about it, but I met her, and we supposedly fell in love. 2 weeks later, got married. And then she was like, "Let's join the army." And so I, we enlisted. I flew into Georgia to see my parents and everybody, and got really drunk with a bunch of friends. Got pulled over a little bit out of Atlanta in Cobb County, and I was blacked out drunk. I don't remember none of it. Uh, Supposedly, jumped in the hood of a cop car and said the F word in that county, and you know, uh, danced on the hood or whatever. And they held me for a few days, and then I couldn't, uh, I couldn't go to the army after that. So I blew my chance on that. She ended up doing 3 tours and stuff, and I could have lived on base with her, and but it was like one of those pride ego things. So I was like, packed up from California, came back to Georgia, and you know, moved back into mom and dad's, starting all over again. Uh, so then it got into then it got into the bars and the drinking and all that stuff, all the crazy drug dealers act was going on. But it was hey, Zach's, let's go to the bar with Zach. Zach's the guy that's gonna make the party, you know. Uh, you know, I could go to a bar and talk the owner into letting us dance on top of the bar. So I was one of those people. I was a smooth talker. I could get away with anything and get us into stuff and to do stuff for free. And I just knew how to work folks, and you know, ran that life for a while, and it just was empty. I could never fill that void, no matter what, I did or where I went. And even if it was like the craziest story where everybody was like, oh my God, dude, I've never heard of anybody doing that. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, it it just never filled the void. It was this emptiness. And I, I'm running into an old friend of mine, which like I was one of the first folks to ever do, uh, to put in front of her, a lot of hard drugs. We lost contact the whole time I was in California and gone. And you know, at this point I'm doing good. I'm working. Yeah, I'm still going to the bar every night. I'm making good money. You know, uh, I had 2 kids at this time, and had custody of them. And but it was easy to drop them off at my mom and dad's and disappear for a weekend. And you know, well, I get a call from a friend, and he's like, "Hey, look, somebody here wants to talk to you." And she gets on the phone, and she was like, "Hey, sis." I'm like, "No." She's like, "I'm not gonna say my wife's name. It'd be her own testimony for her own time." But I was like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" Uh, she was like, "Well, I'm over here at so and so's house." I was like, "Yeah, I know you calling me from their phone." She's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm at this huge pool party. It's got 100 and something people here with DJ right outside of Atlanta. And at the time, I was in the gym several several times a week. I was doing steroids. I was, just big dude. I'm looking my best. And I was like, she was like, come see me, come hang out with me tonight. And I was like, you know what, I will. So I packed up and left the people I was hanging out with, and I drove half an hour to where she was at. And we ended up, hanging out that night, and she never left. Like, never left. And so, but she had a secret. You know, she was really good at she was a functioning addict at the time, and which I used to dibble dabble all the time, and nobody ever knew. I just kept it low key, and And then, that's when we started using together, after being married, for a little while. We started using together, and that's when it all went downhill, uh, you know, and, you know, the depression was even more because, like, the love I had for her, and the sometimes, the hate that the drug would put in her against me, and the words and everything. And so uh, one afternoon at 2 o'clock, I went outside and I threw a rope over a tree and then I hung myself. And she, uh, I guess, was lucky enough to come outside and see it, and it was able to get me out of the tree, and they were, able to bring me back. My whole everything was swollen up, and you know, and I asked God, I was like, why? Like, why would you save me? Why would you keep me from it? Like, I'm I'm mentally tortured. I'm mentally dying, like inside, like, all all the things I did, and the cars I bought, the parties, all that never meant anything ever. Uh, you know, all just left was lost friends and heavy addiction for a lot of them that I really cared about, and still care about, And y'all know who y'all are. I'm glad y'all are sober. Thank God. You know, I ask for forgiveness for every day for introducing to y'all a lot of the stuff that I did. But you know, God saved me that day, and my wife saved me that day. And um, trust me when I say things didn't get better, and then they get even worse. You know, uh, you know, I got hit by a car uh, a year or so later, and I got pins, rods, and plates all down my right side of my body. I was down for a year, almost a year. I got my hand is, I don't know if y'all can see it, but I got a scar that goes all the way down here. My hand's stitched. And it's wired to a plate right here holding this. I broke my hip, my leg, all at the same time. On the 4th of July, I had emergency surgery on the 4th of July. Like it couldn't get worse. You know what I mean? Um, and so I did with the addiction of the pain pills then, you know, uh, doctor was giving me massive amounts, like massive amounts. Plus, I was still just doing meth with the wife, and um, you know, it didn't get better. Um, you know, I get healed up and everything, and I get healed up and everything, and I get sober. I go to a rehab. I check myself into a rehab, and um, and I go get, I went for a couple of weeks and got sober and came home, and my wife, wanted to get sober after that, because she was gone. She had ran off when I went to rehab, and you know, packed up everything in a U-Haul and took off to Alabama and was not coming back. I was like, well, I'm going to get sober. I need to get my mind right, because I had custody of my two boys at the time, and me and her had a daughter together. And I just wanted to be the back to dad I was at the beginning. And she came back when I got out of rehab, and we tried to get her into a rehab, and we take her to the ER and tell them like, hey, look, she needs help. And this is before all the resources that we have now, you know. So, you know, she stayed sober for a little bit and she'd go right back into it. And then, I was like, at that point, I was like, if you're doing it, I'm doing it, you know. So it just kept escalating to the point to where she had a mental breakdown because I told her I was done. I didn't want to do this anymore. And it was right before Christmas. And we made an agreement that she was like, we'll get a little bag and we'll just do it, to get the energy to put up Christmas and stuff like that. So okay. That's where I should have said, should have said okay. But I was sticking to it. And she has left and came back with some more. And I was like, you said that was it. I said, I was serious about that. Which caused a huge fight. And she had a mental breakdown. And, her mother was there. My mother-in-law was there. And she called the cops on her, which we both went to jail. And, it doesn't matter in the state of Georgia if the woman's in the right or in the wrong, the man will go to jail. Facts. You have to beat it in the court of law. And I know this because, I had to go through this. Well, defects got involved. So, uh, you know, we worked in a defects case, which I was 100% sober for that. And I started getting in the church. And, because she went to, she ended up going to prison because that little incident added up with some other little incidents that I was unaware of that she had been bonded out for and all that stuff, and that, just things that I didn't know that was going on. That's how good she was. She was slick. Well, so yeah, I'm one of the judge told me I'm one of the first men he ever seen do a full defects case in the state of Georgia because it's impossible. Even though I had full custody of I proved the mother of my boys unsafe in Superior Court. They drilled me, they beat me down, they broke me down, and I kept coming back. I kept coming back, and I spent $14,000 to $16,000 in lawyers trying to just get my kids back to me. Sober me, and so the judge finally, uh, after 18 months, says, "Hey, I can only hear you bash this man so much because they blamed me for my wife's addiction and where she was at, and the mother of my boys, they blamed me for her alcoholism that I left her for and her cheating. They said it was me that was the manipulator and did all that." And it's hard, when they would bring them in the courtroom, they'd make me turn around and face the wall. And I'm like, I took both these people in when they were at their worst and let them live in my home, and supported them and took care of them and let them do whatever they wanted. And this is where I'm at. But I got through that. And my wife came home from prison and, she did a program and passed the program, a whole year or so sober. and you know, she relapsed, and I ended up relapsing with her because it's like I said, if she's going to do it, I was going to do it. So it was like the vicious cycle. Uh, and what makes it worse, you know, when you ask for God and you pray to get yourself out of these situations and these, these things, and you spit in his face and go right back to it, it's 7 times worse. Uh, it was so every time it got worse and worse. Uh, so, you know, um, I got, hold on. My wife was uh, really high, and I walked in on her, and I was like, "Look, I'm done with this. Give me your bowl," and she would give it to me, and I grabbed her, and I was like, "We got to stop this," and stuff, and I had my hands on her shoulders and her neck and stuff, and I was done. I was done with all this to the point to where I could have hurt her, and I've never in my life ever put my hands on any woman at any like I would beat men. I would if I found out somebody had put their hands on a woman, we would get groups together and go beat that man. And I just had my hands. I was just so like could have been possessed, could have been this done with life. Period. Uh, well, she ended up stabbing me in my neck with the. I don't know if y'all can see it, but there's a scar that goes from here across here with the meth pipe, and you know, I, I walked out of the house and I went into our basement and I tried to hang myself again. And I come to a couple hours later and I was on the floor and it's crazy. Like it broke a joist, which doesn't make any sense to me. This house is solid, solid, solid. And, you know, he's kept me around and I never knew why. And I asked, why, Lord, why me? Like, look what I've done to everybody. I've poisoned cities, I've wrecked lives, tore apart families, you know, what, all the drugs I brought around, the underground fighting, the, this, all the gang stuff. Like, I was like a Gandhi. I could go into like, and, and, and sit down with every gang. Everybody was cool with me. They knew what I was about and what like all that stuff. Like I walked through that unscathed, and you know, I'm the one that was trying to take my life, and he wouldn't let me. And I kept asking, like Lord, like, and what is it? What do you got for me? How much worse can it be? Like, I get it. Do I need to suffer for what I've done in the past? And my wife ended up going to get locked back up, and she, I thought she was going crazy because she kept writing down 60 days, 60 days, 60 days, sitting on the floor, rocking back and forth, like losing it. 60 days, 60 days, in the notebook over and over again. And she kept saying, it's going to look bad going, it's going to look really bad going in, but I'm going to walk out clean. And I'm like, look, you need to, you need to get a grip. You need to whatever you're doing, you need to go to bed. You need to, chill out. Well, uh, during, just to backtrack a little bit, during these years of us using, I kept slipping off to church, and you know, I would go just walk in, and I go to the altar and I pray. Do I need to leave her, or do I need to? What do I need to do, Lord? Guide me, Lord. You know, what should I do? And yeah, uh, it's crazy that the Lord was telling her something, and she, like I said, her testimony, she's got a good one, man. Like, I didn't really get into all the, I don't want to incriminate myself or anybody else for things I've done in the past, but, I have lived an extremely wild life, and the people that, I used to be around and things I used to do and everything. But my wife ended up getting arrested, and she got possession of meth over the guard line because she thought she had gotten out of her pockets when she got arrested, right? Which is like, she was already a convicted felon on serious probation for like 26 gun charges. And, that's what she went to prison for 2 years, you know, yeah, a year or so before prior, um, and so she has this crazy charge. They're probably going to pull her paper. She was looking at 10 years in prison this time. She sees like a month later, she sees the arresting officer. He was Georgia State Patrol. And she walks up to him and says, "Thank you." And he's like, "Well, for what?" He's like, "You don't remember me, do you?" And he had to think for a second, I guess. And he was like, "Yeah, I remember you. You put on a little, you thickened up. You put on a little weight." And he's like, she was like, "You saved my life." And he's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, she said, "I was done. I went, I went and got a bag of dope while my husband was sleeping, and I was going to kill myself." She said, "I already had it all figured out." And she pulled me over right after I got the bag of dope, and as I was on the way to go to where I decided I was going to do it. And she goes, "Thank you. You saved my life." Uh, and at that point, my wife was so, so into the Bible at the time, and, there was many times where, jailhouse religion and all that. And there were so many times when she was, locked up. I was in church, like this. I never missed a day that they were open, and then the devil would whisper in my ear. Next thing I know, I'm back in the bars. And then when she would come home, I would straighten back up and all that. But this time, I told her, I said, "If you're real, this is not jailhouse religion." I said, "I'm with you 100% because I can't live like this no more." And, she's 2 years sober. Uh, yeah. And so am I. She's in Caneo Ministry College. She's going to be working, for a place that does, outreach, cares, stuff like that. They help folks get into, it's for mental health, drug addiction, and all that stuff. Uh, and, I do a lot of stuff with them as well. Uh, I've started a ministry where I go out to the homeless camps, and I bring food and cares and prayer when they want it to the homeless camps where nobody else wants to go. I'm talking about it's scary. I got videos and pictures and all that. You got to earn their trust. You have to earn their trust. These are miles out in the woods. There'd be 20 plus people, 30 people, and it started off as this a thing we were doing, just one or two of us were doing to, you know, um, and I was taking 10% of everything. I own my own company, small company, and I was taking 10% of every job I was doing, and I was uh, putting it into getting food, which I was spending like $300-400 a week. Trying to get enough for 25 people, or to have enough rations to, make it through until I could come back the next week. And then now I'm linked up with other organizations to where I can now get them out. If they want rehab, or they want to have mental health, or they need rehab, and get them in sober living or rehabs or stuff like that. I have that. I have those connections now. Um, and so, I'll show you all this. I'll take us through this. This is my organization, the Holy Homeless Crusades and Family Cares. Uh, I don't take any money, no money donations. We have a place in town, in here in Cartersville, that you can, safely drop off any, food items, non-perishables, water. Water's the main thing in first aid. I bring up Narcan, pamphlets and stuff to educate them on what the resources we do have now. But I went from I went from proud of being, one of the people that was moving around the biggest weight of the, most powerful methamphetamine and ecstasy and stuff, to spend every day asking God to forgive me for the souls that I have, that I've hurt. And that's why I started. I'm doing this, is that you know I'm not, this ain't a recognition or trying to look cool, get some clout. That's nothing to do with that. It's nothing to do with that. I've been in church the last 2 years, like hardcore, and I've learned that there's 99 in those four walls, but not the one. You have to get out of those four walls to go find that one. You gotta get out of that comfort zone. And like, there's so many people hungry, starving, dying, hurt, disabled. It's unreal. And I didn't realize it until the first couple of times I went out, and like, it crushed me to see folks living like that. Like, it just got done storming for like 4 or 5 monsoon days, and like, I'm out there, 4-wheel drive, like 2 or 3 miles down these trails to get out to where they're at, because they want to be far enough away so the police can come out there and make them leave. You know, Folks with wounds that are so bad that the maggots are living in, and it broke my heart. And that's when I really got really got into this, and I put my all into it. It's where 10% of my company, anything my company makes, it goes to this project. It's not a project. It's like I said, it's a crusade. It's the Holy Homeless Crusade of Family Cares. This is the crusade. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. For what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think God, shrugged me through everything that I did, and the multiple suicide attempts, and the being stabbed, being shot at, everything that I've been through, multiple car wrecks. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't. Honestly, I think there better folks died younger than me, but I didn't. So, my testimony is that after all I've done and all I've been through, you know, he saved me. And he saved me for a purpose. We all have a purpose. Your purpose might be to share mine and other people's purposes, you know, uh, but everybody has a purpose. And it's crazy if you ask God, what's my purpose? What's my direction? He will show you. But will you listen? When you step out of your comfort zone and your four walls that are padded and nice and air conditioning or heated during the winter time with these soft chairs and, you know, hallelujah, pretty good. Step out of that and be what God really wants you to be? Or are you just going to show up to every cookout on Wednesday and every church on Sunday, and occasional Bible studies on during the week, or, you know, prayer nights or the men's group once a month? But that's you. That's you. I'm not knocking you at all. But, you know, somebody had wrote on Facebook a little while ago that the church needs to make disciples. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. No, disciples need to make apostles. Disciples can talk about the Lord and praise Him in that four walls. The apostles is what we need, because there's so many out there that need what we got. Like I was blown away the first time they asked me to come back and said, "Hey, can you come pray with us?" They reached out to a friend of mine that's at the Compassion Center, and he sees them all the time. They were like, "Send the guy out here with the beard to pray with us." And I was like, yeah, of course, yeah. I was the first time I ever did anything like that. I was prophesized over several times in the beginning of this year by different pastors or different evangelists or whatever, at different places, that I would be like John the Baptist, which I was like, okay, John the Baptist talks about Jesus. I talk about Jesus all the time. But it didn't dawn on me until I was walking out of the woods, and my buddy that goes with me says, "Look at you walking out of the woods like John the Baptist." And he had no idea that I was ever prophesied over like that. And I think, you know, It's not I think God saved me for this. He saved me because I can communicate with folks on a level that other folks can't. And I'm thankful that he spared my life because I have 4 beautiful kids and a grandbaby. And my kids are super smart, just amazing kids. You know, they say, your kids will be 10 times worse than you are, but I didn't get that because I feel bad for my parents because I was horrible. I had great parents and I was absolutely a nightmare. My sister was perfect, but I was just a nightmare. But uh, God's amazing, and
Yeah.
it's crazy. The faith of a mustard seed, they say, they'll move a mountain. I know that sounds so taboo that everybody says that, right?
Hmm.
But if you ask him, and you're in the blood covenant of Christ, if you ask him for something, yes, give it to you. It might not be exactly how you want it. It might not be when you want it or the way you want it, but you ask the Lord. Ask the Lord to make a move, show you where you need to be, and He will. And that's my testimony.
Yeah, Zach, I really appreciate you sharing your testimony, man. I mean, wow, like just to sit here and listen to you for an hour, like how God restored your life, man. Like the things that you had went through and experienced, growing up. You had, like you said, you had a good environment, you had good parents and all that, and you turned to, gangs and streets and crime, drugs, addiction. You know, some of us choose that kind of life, that kind of stuff. Other people, they grow up in those kind of environments filled with that atmosphere. Everyone's background and stuff is different, but you went through what you went through, and like you said, God preserved you for a reason. And now you're out connecting with all these people that are, homeless. You started your own ministry, and now you can connect with these people and relate to them on this, personal level that a lot of
Well,
others can't.
the so far the one person that I've gotten out uh, in the last couple of weeks, uh, come to find out, he's in his late 20s. Uh, he had a full ride to Princeton, like,
Dang.
and just parents didn't even know. He just
Yeah.
left.
Hmm.
Nobody knows what happened. I think he probably experimented with some drugs.
Right.
My when he was out there, and then he went from Princeton somehow or another ended up in Cartersville, Georgia, and
Hmm.
I camped in the woods, and uh, that was one of the ones that requested me to come pray with him, and
Hmm.
asked him I said, "What do you want me to pray for?" And he said, "Direction." The Lord to give him direction.
Yeah.
So I prayed for him, and he I guess he had not been reporting to probation, and so he went to probation.
Hmm.
Turned
Yeah.
himself in. He he asked for help, and the probation got him hooked up with one of the one of the organizations that I absolutely love. I'm actually doing an event with them tomorrow at the arena,
Nice.
and hold on, I got one there. You know, I got stacks of their flyers and pamphlets. They got post overdose response teams, peer coaching and counseling, promote multiple pathways, community outreach. promote, harm reduction. Like I got a boxes of Narcan. You know, I, I I try to give them out. I'm like, hey, look, man, like if y'all gonna use like, please save your buddy. Don't let them die out here. So bring out Narcan and stuff like that. They have resources for reconnecting with the community, housing, employment, food, transportation, multiple support meetings, treatments for detox, referrals, anger management classes for adult and youth support group meetings, and family support. You know, but that's the thing, they offer all that, but none of these places by law can go out and do what I do because of because of you know their guidelines.
Right.
So I'm the one that'll go in the woods. I'll be honest with you. I carry a pistol because there's a lot of folks out there that they just soon rob me, leave me dead out there. I haven't came across that yet. So far it's been a couple trips to one camp, and I tell them stories of my past, and I tell them, most of them have all been to prison and jail. And they're like, "Oh yeah, well, I was at this prison, Oh yeah, I was at that one, or I've been to that jail, yeah, and I earned their trust. You know what I mean? Let them know, because like they think we're all the cops. The police look like me now, like literally, like beards and tattoos, and that's what undercovers. They look like me now. So these guys don't know.
Yeah.
So I earned their trust and everything, and then I always mention at the end, like, hey, look, everyone, prayer, let me know. And then I ask them, is it okay? Can we start off with, we'll bring pizzas, or I'll go buy like 30 hamburgers. And, I'm like, hey, is it okay if I come out here again? Can I come back next week? And then I'll bring some, I'll bring some rations. We'll get you up. Bring you a little bit to get you through the whole week. Like, cases of water, and ramen noodles, and cans of SpaghettiOs. So that just don't perish in the heat. We in Georgia, man. We right outside of hot Atlanta, bro. It's a jungle outside right now. We ain't even started the summer yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I definitely appreciate you sharing your testimony, Zach. Thank you, man.
Well, thank you for having me, man. Like, yeah, it's been over an hour, dude, and I broke it down to a nutshell. Like, I don't think anybody needs to know a lot of the details of the dirt and things I've done, but I've done some very bad things to a lot of people. And I tell my wife all the time, I'm trying to make up for all of it. Like, I really know.
Zach's testimony is unforgettable, a powerful reminder of God's ability to redeem anyone. No matter how far gone you think you are, you're never out of reach of God's grace. Call out to the Lord. He hears you. Even in the darkest moments, He will be there for you. When you leave your old life behind, God reveals a new purpose for you. Zach is living proof of that transformation. Leave a comment, share your thoughts, or even share your own story of faith. Share this video with someone who needs hope today. Like this video if Zach's testimony inspired you. Hit the notification bell and subscribe button if you want to continue to get more powerful testimonies like this. And at the end of this video, a playlist will pop up called the Testimony Playlist. And in that playlist, you can see all the other powerful testimonies I've got to record in the past. Thank you again so much for watching. And of course, I'll see all you guys on the next one.